Okay, let's unpack this. Mindfulness. It's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's in apps, at work, maybe even, I don't know, on your yogurt container.
Yeah.
It's almost become this catch-all term.
It really has.
But do we really know what it means beyond the hype? Is it just being aware, paying attention, hanging out in the present moment? It feels like there's maybe something more, something deeper there.
You're absolutely right. The word gets used so broadly now. It's easy for the original purpose and the deeper meaning to get a bit lost in the noise.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. And thanks for sharing this fantastic stack of sources, writings from various Buddhist teachers and practitioners. It's a really rich collection, kind of a shortcut to understanding mindfulness from its roots.
That's right. Our mission today, really, based on the material you've provided, is to move beyond that buzz. We want to understand what mindfulness is and, importantly, what it isn't within this ancient context.
Yeah.
We'll explore how it's actually practiced, see how these traditions say it can help us navigate, life's difficulties, and understand its essential place in a larger picture of well-being and happiness.
Get ready, then, for some maybe surprising clarity and some truly practical insights you can weave into your everyday life. So let's start right there, getting past the buzzword. You mentioned Meade Sperry brings up this concern that some mainstream interpretations might miss the deeper purpose. In the sources you've shared, what does that deeper purpose look like? And maybe start with what mindfulness is not in this classical Buddhist sense.
Okay. Well, Andrew Olendzki, in these texts, points out some really key distinctions based on the traditional teachings. Mindfulness isn't just being conscious. I mean, we're usually conscious, right?
Hopefully.
And it's not just attention. Attention is always directed somewhere. It's not even just paying attention in the present moment, because while all our experience, even memories or thoughts about the future, is actually happening right now. Even just paying attention on purpose isn't quite the whole story, according to Olendzki.
Okay, so if it's not just those things, what is that critical element? What defines it from this perspective?
The key addition, according to Olendzki and others in your sources, is that mindfulness is awareness, yes with attention, yes in the present moment on purpose, but, and this is the crucial part, with a very specific attitude or intentional stance.
Okay.
And that stance is one of non-attached equanimity.
Non-attached equanimity. Okay, what does that mean in practical terms?
It means approaching your experience with balance, sort of, without strongly leaning into wanting things to be a certain way that's craving or really wanting them not to be a certain way that's aversion.
Yeah.
Think of it like watching waves on the ocean. You see them rise and fall, the pleasant ones, the difficult ones, without needing the good ones to stay forever or making the choppy ones disappear immediately.
Right, just observing them.
Exactly. And it's described as an inherently wholesome or healthy mental factor, which means you can't really be truly mindful in this sense if your mind is heavily clouded by grasping or pushing away.
Got it. And what's the purpose then of cultivating this kind of awareness, this mindful equanimity? Is it just for personal calm?
Well, personal calm can be a result, but it's not just for that. Anushka Fernandopulle talks about sampajanna.
Sampajanna?
Yeah, it's often paired with mindfulness, and it means something like clear comprehension or awareness of context.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond just bare sensation to include understanding the bigger picture.
Like what?
Like the intention behind an action, its potential impact, awareness of others, the world around you, the whole context.
So it's not just self-absorption or kind of tuning out the world.
Exactly the opposite, really. Ideally, as Meade Sperry notes in your sources, it actually helps us connect with others, helps mitigate suffering not just for ourselves, but ideally for all beings, and helps us see through that illusion of separation. It's about developing the wisdom that comes from seeing things clearly in this balanced way.
Okay, that connects really well to the promise highlighted in the material. James Baraz and Joseph Goldstein mentioned this powerful claim that mindfulness is called the most direct path to overcome sorrow, lamentation, pain, anxiety, and ultimately to realize the highest happiness. That's a big promise.
It is, absolutely, and it's why it's considered so central to the path. Meade Sperry points out that without right mindfulness, which is one aspect of it, the Buddha's entire Eightfold path wouldn't really be complete or function as intended.
So how does it actually work on the mind to achieve that? How does it deliver on that promise?
Well, James Baraz explains that through consistent practice, it systematically weakens those negative states that cause us suffering, the things like attachment, aversion, confusion.
The usual suspects.
Right. while at the same time it strengthens the wholesome states, kindness, generosity, wisdom.
So it's not just about feeling calm in the moment. It's actively building these positive qualities over time.
Precisely. And it's crucial for developing insight, or Vipassana.
Vipassana, that means to see clearly, right?
Exactly. Anushka Fernandopulle and Thich Nhat Hanh both emphasize that mindfulness helps us gain the clarity needed to see the true nature of our experience. Things like impermanence or interconnectedness, how things really are.
And what does that insight bring? What's the payoff?
Well, Thich Nhat Hanh says that this insight, which is cultivated through mindfulness and concentration, can actually liberate you from deeply rooted patterns of fear, anger, and despair. It opens the door to, well, true joy and peace.
Wow. So it sounds like it fundamentally changes how we interact with the world and, our own inner experience.
It trains us, as James Baraz puts it, to be more conscious, more awake, and therefore more able to respond to situations with clarity and kindness, rather than just reacting out of habit.
Instead of just knee-jerk reactions.
Exactly. Joseph Goldstein calls it the essential basis for wise action.
And Sister Dang Nghiem, she's a Buddhist nun and a former doctor whose writings are in your sources. She sees it as the most profound medicine, both for taking care of oneself and for being truly present to offer benefit to others. That's a really powerful way to frame it.
It is. It highlights both the inner and outer dimensions.
Okay, so if that's what it is and why it matters so much, how do we actually do it? How do we practice? James Baraz says formal meditation practice is crucial, like training any skill.
Right. The formal practice is kind of like the gym. It's where you consciously cultivate mindfulness so that it can then arise more naturally in your daily life off the cushion.
Makes sense.
So the basic sitting practice usually involves finding a comfortable posture. It could be on a cushion, could be on a chair, something stable, like Thich Nhat Hanh says, like a mountain. Embodying both balanced alertness and ease, you connect to the earth, feel supported.
And then the breath. That's the anchor.
Yes, the breath is often used as the primary anchor. You bring your attention to the physical feeling of the in-breath and the out-breath wherever you notice it most clearly. Maybe the nostrils, maybe the rising and falling of the abdomen, or even just the sense of the whole body breathing.
Okay, but what happens like 5 seconds in when inevitably your mind just takes off? Grocery list.
Yeah.
That meeting next week. Replaying some awkward conversation.
The wandering mind, yes. Joseph Goldstein compares it to watching a movie where the scene changes every few minutes. It just happens.
This is normal.
Completely normal.
Yeah.
James Baraz emphasizes that. It's just what minds do. The most important moment isn't the wandering itself, but the moment you realize you've wandered off. That moment of waking up.
Okay, so how should you respond in that moment? Because my instinct is usually frustration.
Right, that's common. But this is crucial. Not with frustration or judgment. As James Baraz advises, you simply, gently bring your attention back with great patience and kindness. Yes, don't scold yourself. Instead, maybe even appreciate that you've woken up from the daydream or the story the mind was spinning. This gentle return, again and again, that is the practice.
Thich Nhat Hanh offers some specific, really simple mindfulness exercises tied to the breath in your sources. Can you walk us through those?
Yes, they're beautifully simple. He starts with just recognizing the in-breath as the in-breath and the out-breath as the out-breath. Just noticing.
Just that.
Just that simple act of noticing without getting caught in thoughts about it helps stop the internal talking, the endless thinking loops.
Just noticing the breath stops the mental chatter. That sounds, well, like a small miracle.
He actually calls it the miracle of the practice. It brings your attention home right here, right now. He also suggests seeing the in-breath as a kind of celebration of being alive, which can make the practice feel joyful, even effortless, rather than a chore.
That's a nice shift in perspective.
It is. The second exercise builds on this. Following the breath from the very beginning of the inhalation all the way through to the very end of the exhalation. This helps cultivate concentration, uninterrupted awareness.
And connecting it to the body. I think that was another one.
That's the third exercise. Breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. This aims to unite mind and body, bringing you fully into the here and now, grounding you, making you feel fully alive, able to truly touch life's wonders in this moment.
He uses that analogy, right? Asking anybody home.
Yes, like asking anybody home to someone whose mind is clearly somewhere else. This practice is about bringing your awareness home to your body, which is always here.
That resonates. Our body is always present, but yeah, our mind is often miles away.
Exactly. And the fourth exercise uses this body awareness to notice areas of tension and stress. And then practicing releasing that tension with the out-breath, he notes you can do this anytime, anywhere sitting, lying down, even waiting at a red light.
Always possible. That's encouraging. Beyond sitting, walking meditation is also a classic practice, isn't it? Joseph Goldstein mentions it too.
Yes, absolutely. Thich Nhat Hanh describes it beautifully as joyful and effortless, where every step can be peace, joy, healing, a miracle of just being present on this earth. Joseph Goldstein agrees it's a wonderful way to bring that same mindful presence into movement, truly touching the wonders of life with every single step.
Okay, so that covers the basics and integrating it into movement. But what about when things get really difficult? I mean, not just a wandering thought, but strong emotions, challenging situations. Jack Kornfield talks about the RAIN practice for working with difficulties.
RAIN. Yes, it's a really powerful framework presented in your sources. It's an acronym for 4 steps to help navigate challenging experiences with mindfulness. RAIN. Recognition, acceptance, investigation, and non-identification.
Okay.
It's really about letting the difficult experience be the teacher, rather than automatically resisting it or getting totally lost in it.
Okay, let's break those down. R is for recognition. What does that look like?
Yes, recognition. Simply recognizing what is happening in the present moment. Seeing what's actually here, stepping out of denial or avoidance.
Acknowledging it.
Exactly. Like a dignified host bowing politely to whatever experience arrives at the door, naming it gently. Sorrow is here, or, tension in the shoulders, or, yes, the judging mind has shown up again.
Yeah.
He uses that funny but insightful analogy of the man trying to give his Doberman cod liver oil, remember that? Once he stopped fighting the dog and just met it with respect, the dog became cooperative. It's about meeting your experience, even the difficult parts, with a similar kind of respect.
Okay, meeting it with respect. Then A is for acceptance.
This means allowing the experience to simply be present, just as it is. It's not passive resignation. It's not like giving up or saying you like it. It's actually a courageous step of acknowledging reality in this moment.
So not fighting it.
Not fighting its presence right now. Like Zorba the Greek embracing trouble. Trouble, I love trouble. Because that's what life presented in that moment. You're just acknowledging, okay, this is what's here.
Got it. And then I was for investigation. Seeing deeply. How do you do that?
This is where you turn the flashlight of mindfulness onto the experience itself, often using the Four Foundations of Mindfulness as a guide. Bhante Gunaratana mentions these as key areas: body, feelings, mind state, and dhammas, or underlying patterns principles.
Okay, so how do you apply that to, say, feeling anxious?
Jack Kornfield explains. You might locate the sensations in the body associated with the anxiety, maybe tightness in the chest, shallow breathing. Then identify the feeling tone clearly unpleasant in this case. Notice the associated thoughts, the stories, the judgment spinning around it. And finally, investigate the underlying patterns or principles, the dhammas, like seeing the impermanence of the anxiety, how it changes moment to moment. Observing these dhammas helps you see that things aren't solid or fixed, which can really loosen your grip when things feel overwhelming.
So mindfulness helps us see that these feelings and thoughts, and even the patterns, they're constantly arising and passing away. They're not permanent fixtures.
Exactly. Joseph Goldstein notes that watching them ebb and flow helps us see their impermanent nature directly, which naturally reduces our tendency to cling to them or push them away so hard.
And the final step, N for non-identification. This sounds important.
It's crucial. This is the shift from taking the experience personally, this is my anxiety, this suffering is me, to recognizing that the awareness that is noticing the experience is distinct from the experience itself.
Okay. Creating some space.
Yes. Jack Kornfield tells that powerful story of David, who practiced this during an all-night vigil with intense difficulty. He realized that the pure awareness observing everything was untouched, like vast open space, even as waves of difficult thoughts and feelings arose and passed through it.
Wow.
Resting in this awareness, rather than being identified with the difficulty, that's the real freedom. That's the end of clinging.
Diana Winston offers some more specific tools in your sources for working directly with difficult thoughts and emotions, kind of building on this RAIN foundation, starting with thoughts.
Yeah, her key message is so simple but honestly radical. Don't believe everything you think. Learn to see thoughts as thoughts, mental events passing through, not as absolute reality.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. She uses great analogies to help, like catch the snowball of a worrisome thought while it's still small, before it becomes an avalanche. Recognize when you're getting on that runaway train of rumination, I blew it at work, immediately leads to, I'll be fired, I'll lose my house. and choose to gently step off the train.
Right.
You can mentally pop the thought bubble with mindfulness, or use the technique name it to tame it, gently labeling the thought pattern like, worrying, okay, planning, there's self-criticism. Just labeling creates distance.
Joseph Goldstein adds to this, doesn't he? Noting how much we're driven by thoughts we don't even notice.
Right.
Like his pizza story.
Exactly, where hunger thoughts just led directly to action without any conscious choice point. He also reminds us that thoughts often only have the power we give them. They can seem huge and scary, like the Wizard of Oz, but when you pull back the curtain with awareness, you see they're often much less solid.
Seeing their, as you said, essentially empty nature can free us. Okay, what about emotions? Diana Winston suggests mindfully holding challenging emotions. How?
First, similar to Rain's art, it's about recognition and maybe gentle labeling. Fear, okay, shame, sadness is present.
And investigating the physical sensations that come with them seems important here too, right?
Very much so. Where do you actually feel the emotion in your body? The clenched stomach for anxiety, the tight jaw for anger, the constricted chest for grief. She suggests a really useful technique, oscillating your attention.
Oscillating.
Yeah, gently shifting your focus back and forth between the difficult physical sensation of the emotion and a more neutral or even pleasant area of the body, like the feeling of your hands resting or your feet on the floor. This prevents getting totally overwhelmed and helps build your capacity or resilience to be with intense feelings.
So you don't just drown in it.
Right. You learn to witness emotions as they naturally arise, swell, maybe peak, and eventually pass away, like weather patterns moving through the sky. They aren't permanent.
Which really leads back to that idea you mentioned earlier, disidentification from thoughts and emotions.
Exactly. It's that subtle but profound shift. Moving from thinking, this is my thought, this is my emotion, to something more like, this thought emotion is moving through me, or I am aware of this thought emotion arising.
It's the difference between being the thought and being with the thought.
Precisely. That shift creates space. It creates freedom, as Diana Winston emphasizes. So much freedom arises when we stop automatically fusing with the narrative that we are difficult experiences.
She also talks about enlisting the wisdom mind. What's that about? Is that like figuring things out?
It's using a calm, concentrated mind, one cultivated through practice, to ask skillful questions about our patterns or difficult experiences. It's not the same as rumination or getting lost in analysis, and it's different from therapy, though it can complement it. It's more like a gentle, curious inquiry.
Like what kind of questions?
Maybe something like, what's the underlying wisdom in this judgment, even if it feels harsh? Or, is this belief really true? She gives that personal example of her intense anxiety about her daughter. When she brought this gentle inquiry to it, the wisdom mind revealed this deep underlying wellspring of love, and recognizing that actually helped ease the anxiety.
Seeing the root differently.
Yes, or recognizing that shame about something isn't actually your fault when the circumstances were genuinely overwhelming. It's about finding the deeper truth or context beneath the difficult surface layer. Sometimes simple reminders from wisdom traditions help too, like just gently saying, this too shall pass.
And she even introduces an adaptation of the Tibetan Tonglen practice, using your own difficulty to connect with others.
Yes, consciously reflecting when you're feeling pain or difficulty that countless others are feeling this very same way right now. This fosters a sense of common humanity, of compassion, and can prevent that feeling of isolation that often comes with suffering. It's a powerful way to connect outward, even when you're dealing with inner difficulty.
So it's clear mindfulness isn't just for the meditation cushion or only for when things are easy. Sister Dang Nghiem really reminds us in your sources that it's truly about integrating it into every single aspect of life.
Absolutely. It has to come off the cushion to be truly transformative. Christopher Willard shares that lovely story about his father teaching him as a kid about clouds fading, using it as a lesson in impermanence and the power of breath. A lesson he now applies to his own changing moods or even, difficult world events. It's seeing the practice opportunities everywhere.
And Karen Maezen Miller offers those wonderfully practical, down-to-earth tips in your sources for creating a more mindful home environment. I like those.
Yeah, they're great.
Like making your bed mindfully or watching your own bowl. She says something like, rinse away self-importance, clean up your own mess.
Yes.
Or setting a timer for tasks to stay focused. Or simply eating and sleeping mindfully. She suggests that first tip, just waking up mindfully, kind of sets the stage for the rest of the day.
And these examples show that mindfulness isn't necessarily about adding something complicated or extra to your already busy life. It's more about bringing awareness to what you're already doing. It transforms the mundane into the meaningful.
It does take discipline, though, right?
Yeah.
Joseph Goldstein notes that. He shares that anecdote about the legendary cellist Pablo Casals still practicing rigorously at age 93.
Because I am beginning to notice some improvement.
Yes.
It highlights that regular, consistent practice, even if it's in small doses, is really key for seeing results over time, like any skill.
And retreats, when possible, are highlighted as important for maybe going deeper.
Yes. Joseph Goldstein calls them essential for those deeply committed to awakening. They offer that extended, intensive practice time, which can really help balance our necessary engagement in the world with cultivating that inner quiet and insight.
Okay, so finally, where does all this fit in the bigger picture? You mentioned the Buddha's Eightfold Path earlier.
Right. Gaylon Ferguson places right mindfulness, samasati in Pali, as one of the 8 interconnected factors for a complete awakened life. It's not just a standalone technique, it deeply supports and is supported by the other 7 aspects of living mindfully and ethically. It's part of a whole system.
Okay, so how does it connect to, say, right view or right intention? Can you give an example?
Sure. Right view is the understanding that motivates the practice, seeing how things work, understanding suffering and its causes. This creates a foundation of friendliness and respect for your own experience. So the mindfulness practice isn't harsh or striving. It's that not too tight, not too loose attitude. And right intention is why we practice. It might start with wanting personal peace, but it can naturally expand to include the well-being of others, which Ferguson calls the great motivation. Mindfulness helps clarify and sustain that intention.
And things like right effort or right meditative engagement?
Right effort involves balancing applying energy with trusting our innate capacity for mindfulness, not forcing it, but not being lazy either.
Hmm.
Right, meditative engagement means that even as the mind concentrates, say on the breath, it remains spacious and connected to the environment around us, not totally zoned out.
And the more action-oriented ones, right? Speech, livelihood, action.
Mindfulness is key there too. It enables us to pause before speaking, allowing for more genuine dialogue and non-harming communication that's right speech. It helps us see our work not just as a job to get through, but perhaps as a contribution to the common good, an offering that's right livelihood. And fundamentally, mindfulness manifests as compassionate activity in the world, action that flows from insight and presence, right action.
It makes presence possible.
Exactly. And as Sister Dang Nghiem says so powerfully, presence is the only moment we actually have to truly make a difference for ourselves and for others.
She shares that really poignant story in her writings, doesn't she? About her patient finding peace in his final moments, simply through cultivating presence and awareness with her guidance.
It's a profound illustration of the medicine of simply being present and aware, even or especially in the face of something as ultimate as death. And Gaylon Ferguson also reminds us that teachers or spiritual friends, Kalyana Mitta, are often really vital on this path. They offer challenges and support that help us cultivate that expansive quality, keep us honest.
So to sort of sum it all up, this deep dive into the sources you've shared has really shown us that mindfulness, in its traditional context, is far more nuanced and potent than just simple awareness or relaxation.
Definitely. It's a wholesome quality, cultivated through dedicated practice, and it's imbued with that intentional stance of non-attached equanimity, balance.
It's a practice that helps us see ourselves and the world more clearly, weakening the roots of suffering and, ultimately, revealing an inherent happiness and freedom that's already there.
That's the promise, yes. Helping us access what's already present beneath the surface noise.
And while it's rooted in ancient wisdom, the practices themselves, as we've seen, are often profoundly simple and accessible. They really can be woven into even the busiest of modern lives.
It's really about finding the tools and the commitment to be truly present with whatever life brings, the pleasant, the unpleasant, and the neutral.
So as you reflect on all this, maybe consider this simple yet kind of radical idea presented throughout these sources. The power that difficult thoughts and emotions often seem to hold over us. Well, maybe it comes largely from the power you give them, often unconsciously, by identifying with them, but believing their stories wholesale. What would it actually be like to simply witness them, just as they are, without taking them as fundamentally you? What freedom might lie in just resting back into that vast awareness that notices it all, the awareness that itself remains untouched. Maybe keep exploring that within your own experience.